Hello, speech students. This is Tracy Hellickson, your instructor, with a mini lecture on quoting and paraphrasing in a speech. Quoting and paraphrasing is a helpful tool for a speaker. It allows the speaker to bring in outside source material to support the speaker's points. When the speaker uses good, solid, credible sources, it also adds credibility to the speech. When quoting and paraphrasing, it's always important to mention the source out loud in the speech to give credit to the source for the original words or the original idea. The only exception to this is common knowledge that the speaker paraphrases when that knowledge is repeated in several different sources. For example, in preparation for a speech, I may need to look up the population of a certain U.S. city because I don't know that information off the top of my head. However, because I can find that information repeated in several different sources, as long as I don't copy word for word the sentences that give me that information in the original, but instead rephrase it into my own words, I don't need to cite that because it's repeated in so many sources that I don't need to give credit to one particular source. A similar fact might be something like the order of the United States presidents. Again, as long as I reword the information from the original source, it's okay to include that kind of common knowledge in my speech without citing a particular source. Here are the key differences between quoting and paraphrasing. When quoting, it's important to announce the source out loud in your speech just before saying the quoted information. It's also important to signal the quotation, and we'll talk in a moment about how to do that. Quoting, by definition, means using the exact words of the original source. So when a speaker quotes, the speaker reads to listeners the exact wording that the original source spoke or wrote. Paraphrasing also requires announcing the source out loud in the speech just before sharing the source's idea. However, in paraphrasing, the speaker uses different wording and different sentence structure than the original source. Here are some examples. Here's an original quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson. It says, "We have a great deal more kindness than is ever spoken." If a speaker wanted to use that quote in a speech, the speaker might say something like this in the speech. Writer and philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, quote, "We have a great deal more kindness than is ever spoken." Then the speaker could either pause to signal the end of the quotation before moving on to the speaker's own words, or the speaker could actually say the words, end quote, to signal the end of the quotation. Note that the source's exact words are placed inside quotation marks. It would be important for you to do that on your graphic organizer or on your outline as well. Here's a sample paraphrase using the same original material. So remember that the original quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson that the speaker would like to use in the speech is, quote, "We have a great deal more kindness than is ever spoken," end quote. Here is what a speaker might say out loud in the speech when paraphrasing Ralph Waldo Emerson's idea. Writer and philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson believes that even in situations where people don't voice how they feel, humans have an abundance of goodwill toward one another. So note that the speaker has taken Ralph Waldo Emerson's idea, but rephrased it in the speaker's own words. This shows the speaker's understanding of the material, and in some cases it also allows the speaker to take technical language and make it easier for listeners to understand. Note that the speaker uses completely different words and completely different sentence structure than the original quotation. But the speaker still mentions the source out loud to give credit to the original source for the idea. It's important to document source material in your speech to give credit to the original source. The ways to do that are to mention the source out loud in the speech prior to sharing the source material, and also to include a works cited at the end of the speech, and we will talk more in detail about how to create a works cited. Here are some key points. Always mention the source out loud just before sharing the source material, whether you're quoting or paraphrasing. Write the introduction of the source material into your graphic organizer or outline. For example, If you were going to say, writer and philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, if that's what you plan to say before your quote, write those words into your graphic organizer or your outline. When quoting in the speech, signal the source's exact words with a pause or even a word like quote. When paraphrasing, be sure to use different wording and different sentence structure than the original. And finally, use quotation and paraphrase to add depth and credibility to your speech. I'm looking forward to hearing your quotes and paraphrases in your speeches.